Don't scroll. This might be the message your heart's been avoiding. Sometimes Allah doesn't speak to you in words, He speaks through signs, through patterns, through things that keep happening until you finally listen. You ask for guidance, but when He sends it, you call it coincidence. You pray for clarity, but when He removes people from your life, you call it loss. You ask for peace, but when He closes the doors that lead to harm, you call it disappointment. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, learned this truth the hard way, that not everything painful is punishment, and not every blessing looks like comfort. When his brothers betrayed him, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. When he was thrown into the well, it wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. Every moment that felt like breaking was Allah showing him something, shaping him for what was coming next. And the same thing is happening to you. The signs are everywhere, in the people who leave, in the doors that close, in the moments that don't make sense yet. Ibn Arabi said that the greatest blindness is not of the eyes, but of the heart that refuses to see what Allah keeps showing. Every repetition in your life, every test that looks the same, every emotion that keeps returning, it's not a cycle, it's a lesson. Allah doesn't need to speak twice, but He often does, because He loves you too much to let you stay asleep. Every delay, every silence, every heartbreak is saying, this is not your path. But when He sends something that gives you peace, even if it's small, even if it's quiet, that's Him saying, here. This is where I want you to be. So stop ignoring what Allah keeps showing you. The discomfort isn't random, it's a divine alarm. The loss isn't punishment, it's protection. The silence isn't distance, it's mercy. Yusuf's story teaches that what looks like an ending is often the beginning of understanding. Maybe Allah has been showing you the truth again and again, through the people who change, through the plans that fall apart, through the nights that push you to your knees, because He wants you to finally see that His guidance has been there all along. You just had to stop looking everywhere else and start looking where it's always been, in your heart, in your patience, in your prayer. And when you finally stop running from those signs, everything begins to make sense. The confusion fades, the noise quiets, and you realize that Allah had been guiding you all along, just not in the way you expected. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, didn't understand why he was betrayed, or why the people he helped in prison forgot him. But later, when he stood before the king interpreting dreams that would save a nation, he saw the pattern. Every event that once felt meaningless was a step of divine precision. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. The same is true for you. The job that slipped away, the friend who changed, the path that closed, they weren't accidents. They were answers to prayers you once made but forgot. Allah heard them. And when you said, guide me, He started removing what wasn't meant for you. Ibn Arabi said that guidance doesn't always appear as what you want, it often appears as what you resist. The signs Allah sends are not meant to comfort you, they're meant to wake you. And when you keep ignoring them, life becomes heavier, because Allah loves you too much to let you stay blind. So if He's closing a door again and again, stop knocking. If He's removing someone again and again, stop chasing. If He's giving you discomfort every time you step in a certain direction, stop forcing it. Peace isn't found by pushing harder, it's found by surrendering deeper. When Allah wants to show you something, He will, through blessings if you listen early, through pain if you delay. So listen now. Stop calling it coincidence. Stop asking for a sign when He's already sent you 10. The pattern you keep ignoring is the answer. And when you finally accept what Allah keeps showing you, your heart begins to soften in ways it never could before. You start to realize that the signs were never hidden, it was your own attachment that made them hard to see. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, could have stayed bitter at the betrayal of his brothers. But instead, he looked beyond the surface. He saw Allah's wisdom inside the injustice, His mercy inside the hardship. And that's the shift waiting to happen within you. Once you stop fighting His signs, life becomes lighter. The confusion fades because you stop forcing what isn't written. Ibn Arabi said, "The veil of pain lifts only when the servant stops denying what Allah reveals." The same patterns you keep repeating are not curses, they are lessons you haven't yet learned. The relationships that keep breaking aren't bad luck, they are Allah protecting your heart from what would destroy it. The plans that keep failing aren't punishment, they are Allah redirecting your soul toward peace. You'll find that once you begin to say, "I understand, Ya Allah," instead of "Why me?" the same life that once felt chaotic starts to flow with meaning. Because the moment you stop ignoring what He's showing, everything around you begins to guide you. Every silence becomes a reminder, every loss becomes a message, every moment becomes a sign that Allah has been speaking all along, just waiting for you to finally open your eyes and see. And when you finally open your eyes, you start to see that guidance was never far, it was hidden inside every detail of your life. The people who came and left, the doors that opened and closed, even the heartbreaks you thought were mistakes, all of them were signs. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, didn't see the full picture when he was betrayed, when he was sold as a slave, when he was forgotten in prison. But when he stood years later in the palace, forgiving the same brothers who once threw him away, he understood. Every twist, every delay, every loss was leading him there. And so it is with you. The pain that made you cry was preparing you. The rejections that humbled you were protecting you. The silence that broke you was teaching you to listen. Ibn Arabi said that the soul only begins to see when the eyes of comfort close. And when you start to see through the eyes of faith, you realize that nothing was wasted, not a single moment. Allah has been showing you, shaping you, speaking to you not to hurt you, but to awaken you. He closed certain paths not to punish you, but to pull you away from what would have destroyed your peace. And the moment you stop ignoring what He's been showing, your life starts to align in ways that feel effortless. You stop chasing, and things start arriving. You stop begging, and peace begins to flow. Because when you finally see, you stop asking for signs, you start living as one. And as you begin to live with open eyes, you realize that guidance was never something to wait for, it was always there, waiting for you. You start to recognize how mercifully Allah repeats His signs until you're ready to understand them. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, didn't resist the path written for him, he surrendered to it, trusting that every detour was part of the plan. That's why even in the well, even in prison, his heart stayed calm. He knew Allah was never silent, only subtle. You start to see that same subtlety in your own life. The delay that once made you impatient now feels like mercy. The heartbreak that once tore you apart now feels like a doorway to something truer. Ibn Arabi said, "When Allah shows you something twice, it's because you didn't hear it the first time and because He loves you enough to speak again." You begin to see how gentle that love truly is, how He keeps guiding you even when you ignore Him, how He keeps sending reminders even when you forget. Every repeated pain, every familiar disappointment, every quiet whisper in your heart saying, "This isn't right," that's not coincidence. That's Allah speaking in the only language you'll truly listen to experience. And when you finally stop ignoring what He keeps showing, life starts to align with purpose. You no longer chase signs, you walk in them. You no longer beg for guidance, you live inside it. Because once you start listening, you realize the truth that Yusuf lived and Ibn Arabi taught. Allah never hides His signs, He hides hearts that are not yet ready to see them. And when your heart finally becomes ready to see, you begin to notice Allah in everything, not just in miracles, but in moments. The quiet mornings, the delays, the people who cross your path for a reason and leave for one too. Nothing feels random anymore. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, lived years not knowing why things happened the way they did, but every twist carried him toward divine completion. You start to realize that the same thing is happening in your life right now. The doors that close are protecting you. The pauses are preparing you. The rejections are redirecting you toward what's written. Ibn Arabi said that when Allah wants to guide His servant, He doesn't always send comfort, sometimes He sends clarity through discomfort. That's why the same lesson keeps returning until you stop ignoring it. The same feeling, the same mistake, the same pattern, it isn't punishment, it's a message, you're still walking the wrong way. But when you finally surrender, the repetition stops. The storm quiets. You begin to move differently, think differently, pray differently. You stop trying to control every outcome and instead ask, Ya Allah, show me what you want me to see. And then the signs become clear. What once felt confusing starts to flow with ease. You recognize His guidance in the timing, His mercy in the waiting, His love in the loss. Because now you understand, the lessons were never outside of you, they were within you all along. You just needed to stop ignoring them long enough to hear Him whisper, "This is the way." And as you keep seeing His signs everywhere, the world itself starts to feel like a classroom, every day a new lesson written just for you. You begin to understand that Allah never hides His guidance, He hides it inside what you keep avoiding. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, spent years in tests that seemed unfair, yet each one carried him higher. The betrayal taught him patience, the well taught him trust, the prison taught him wisdom. What you're going through is no different, it's your own version of that story. Ibn Arabi said that the servant who refuses to read the signs must relive them until his heart opens. That's why the same pain keeps returning, the same doors keep closing, the same feelings keep rising, not because Allah is punishing you, but because He's repeating the lesson with love. The moment you acknowledge it, the repetition stops. Suddenly you see how every hardship was a gentle nudge towards something truer, purer, lighter. And when you stop ignoring what Allah keeps showing you, your heart finally aligns with His rhythm. You stop asking for signs and start living inside them. You stop chasing meaning and start walking in it. That's when everything feels clear, not because life got easier, but because you finally learned to see with faith instead of fear. And when that awareness becomes a part of you, life stops feeling like a series of accidents and starts feeling like revelation. You wake up each morning knowing that every event, every joy, every delay, every tear is a sign written specifically for your soul. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, only understood the meaning of his trials when he looked back and saw the divine handwriting behind them all. You begin to see the same handwriting in your own story, the heartbreak that softened your pride, the waiting that built your patience, the loss that made space for something purer. Ibn Arabi said that once the heart begins to read the signs, it becomes incapable of disbelief, because everything it sees reminds it of Allah. That is the state you enter now. You stop begging for miracles, because you see them in every breath. You stop fearing change, because you trust the one who changes everything. Even the smallest things, a door closing, a meeting missed, a stranger's kindness, begin to speak to you, each whispering the same truth, I am from Him. And when you reach that level of sight, you finally understand why the signs had to repeat. They weren't sent to punish you, they were sent to wake you. Now that you are awake, the world feels lighter, clearer, alive. You walk through it not blind anymore, but guided. And as you whisper Alhamdulillah, I see now, the silence around you answers with peace. Because the lesson is complete. Allah never stopped showing you the way, you just had to open your heart to see it. And as you keep walking with that clarity, you notice how everything begins to align, your steps, your thoughts, your prayers. The confusion that once felt unbearable now feels like direction. You no longer ask Allah to change your circumstances, you ask Him to help you understand them. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, reached that point too where pain no longer confused him, it humbled him. Every hardship revealed a truth, every waiting became worship. You start living like that, too. Ibn Arabi said, "The one who sees Allah in all things never complains, for he understands that every motion is a message." You begin to feel this, even the smallest things hold meaning. A delay becomes a reminder to trust. A disappointment becomes protection. A loss becomes guidance. You stop seeing random events and start seeing divine choreography, every thread woven perfectly into your story. The same Allah who turned Yusuf's betrayal into leadership is turning your struggle into strength. And when you realize that, you stop asking for signs, because your heart itself becomes one. You become someone who listens before asking, trusts before seeing, and thanks before receiving. That's when true peace enters, not because life is easy, but because you've finally stopped ignoring what Allah keeps showing you. And when you reach that level of awareness, you begin to walk differently, slower, softer, with a heart that pays attention. You no longer look for grand miracles, you notice the small ones that were always there. The air after rain, a prayer answered in silence, a feeling of peace in the middle of chaos. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, lived through years of confusion, but the moment he stopped resisting and started seeing, everything made sense. He saw Allah in betrayal and in forgiveness, in the well and on the throne. Ibn Arabi said that the one who truly knows Allah sees him in every direction he turns. That's where you are now, finally awake to what was always in front of you. You no longer fight what ends or cling to what fades. You've learned that when something is taken, it's because something better is being written. You trust the flow of life, because you know who designs it. The signs don't need to shout anymore, they only need to whisper, and your heart hears them. Because the blindness has lifted, the lesson is complete, and the peace you searched for has always been within you, waiting for the moment you'd stop ignoring what Allah kept showing you, and start seeing through His eyes. And that's when you finally understand Allah was never silent, you just weren't still enough to hear Him. Every loss, every delay, every door that closed was never rejection, it was protection. Every unanswered prayer was an invitation to trust. Yusuf, Alayhissalom, stood at the end of his journey and said to his brothers, "Indeed, my Lord is subtle in what He wills." And now, you feel those words in your own soul. You see that subtlety in your story, the way pain led to strength, the way confusion led to faith, the way endings led you home. Ibn Arabi said, "When the veil is lifted, you will thank Allah for what He took as much as for what He gave." And that's where you stand now, in gratitude, not for the things that went right, but for the things that once broke you and then built you. Because they opened your eyes. You finally see that Allah never stopped guiding you, never stopped loving you, never stopped showing you the way. And when you whisper, "Alhamdulillah, I see now," your heart smiles, because you realize this was the point of every sign, to bring you back, to awaken you, to remind you that you were never walking alone. You just had to stop ignoring what Allah kept showing you, to see that He was leading you home all along.